Hi.
Hi, Lian.
Oh, wait, I cannot hear you. 1 second. Oh, it's me.
Do you hear me?
Hold on, I'm gonna have to reconnect.
Vorrei sapere quanti anni mi servono ancora, perché sono un quinto livello, ma ogni giorno penso di cambiare lavoro perché non sono più rimanere lì. So che ai fini pensionistici c'è una differenza se io scendo di livello, però volevo capire quanto ci devo rimanere, se ce la
I
faccio.
changed literally nothing and now it works.
Oh, okay, now I hear you.
Yeah. Okay, good. You are here for the app development working group meeting, right?
Yeah, right.
Hello. Elian.
Hey, are you still on your offsite?
I'm not. I'm here in London. So yeah, it was yesterday, but I live here, so it wasn't a big upset for me.
I see, I see. Okay, cool.
Hi, Thomas. Hi, Graciano.
Hi.
Hi.
We wait a couple of minutes, right, for people to join?
I think, yeah, Daniel said he could join for like the first 30 minutes, right?
Yep, that's
So
good.
I think maybe we just wait for him also.
Yep, give me a second. I will just grab water. And there he is.
I put the link to the notes in this chat. Wait, this is the wrong. Damn. That was the wrong link. This is the right one.
Good. What is the chat here? Chat. Okay, please add your names. That's the template, Thomas, I think, yes. Good. More folks joining. For folks who just joined, please add your names on the meeting notes. It would be great to have that there. And I think that, Lian, I guess that you can drive the first part, right?
Yeah, it's very short. This is about the nominations for working group chairs. We have 3 nominations, which works out well because we have exactly 3 chairs spots. So right now we're at the point where we are supposed to send this into the TOC. So we're not gonna really vote on it, the tech leadership, because there's 3 spots, 3 nominations. But the TOC has to confirm. So we let me see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we want okay, we have exactly 3 plus Thomas. So we could send in the message to the TOC, the proposal today. I'm gonna ping Thomas to do it today. And I think though it's not official yet, I think we can already congratulate the 3 of you. I'm not expecting any big concerns from the TOC to come back. So congrats, Mauricio, Daniel, and Thomas. Well done.
Good stuff.
And
good
thanks for
stuff.
doing it.
Thank you.
So
thanks for that.
I will talk to Thomas as well to just check if we have to wait for the TOC to come back to us before we add you to all the platforms and everything, so you can create meetings and all of those things. Because I don't know if if it's just pro forma or we have to actually wait to do any of those official things. But yeah, that's the current state of the chair nomination.
Perfect. That's good. Is there anything else that we need to do around it? About that? Is there something that we need to wait for or?
Yes, so
mm.
you're not officially chairs until the TOC has confirmed you. So we're gonna send we're gonna send the message to the TOC, and then we have to probably chase them for a little bit because it also needs to be accepted by the majority, I think. But you don't have to do anything right now. And
Okay.
I just need to check whether we can already onboard you to all the tools and or we have to wait for them to officially okay this.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. We created that a pull request for the charter. So I guess that's also part of it, right? That's something that you will need to chase people over, right?
You opened a pull request with our repository though, right? With the tag app deliver repository. So
Yeah.
I don't think that needs to be chased a lot. Let me see if I can see. Okay. So what we want to do is we probably in parallel want to have this with the pull request that then needs to go to the TOC. Once again, the TOC needs to approve it. And once the TOC has approved the charter on their repository, we can then merge this charter because that's for us, for our website, for our repository. So the TOC one is the more important one that we have to chase. And then once we get the okay from them, this is just for the sake of having it in our repository as well.
Okay, that sounds good. So please feel free to chase us if we need to action something around these pull requests. I'm trying to keep an eye if somebody adds a comment or they ask for changes. But just in case that I miss something, please let's all try to keep an eye on that. Just to be responsive.
Yeah. So I think I said that last time also. I'm just going to reiterate now. Once you have decided on a charter to submit to the TOC, it's not super straightforward to then change it.
Yeah.
So if once you submitted it, don't make small changes to it because every change needs to be approved by the TOC, and that's just going to take some time. Yeah.
Yeah. So the one that we submitted to the tag app delivery repository, that's pretty much what we think that it's just good, abstract enough for not making changes, quite a lot of changes. Do we need to create the other pull request for the TLC or not? Or that's going to be created by someone
I think it makes probably more sense if one of us does it. Either me or Thomas.
Perfect.
Okay, so the pull request that you have submitted to I'm just gonna post it here just so we are. Oh wait, you already posted it, Thomas. Thank you. So that one is the one that you would also want to submit to the TLC, yes?
But again, should we do that, or are you going to do that with Thomas?
No. I'm just asking. This is the one that you are going with, and you're not planning to change anything.
No.
Maybe tiny stuff, like wording or something. So you're saying if people comment on it, yeah. Okay. Then I can just take that and create the pull request for the TOC today.
Perfect.
And then we will just have to make sure that, they will approve it in a very reasonable amount of time.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect,
because the working group, that's just as an information, needs to be sponsored by one of tag leadership. So it just makes sense if I then create the pull request, then that's kind of implied already that I support the working group.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Excellent.
I think that's really good.
Yeah, thank you.
As I think that we mentioned this on the last meeting, right? Like we were working on this charter as the main priority right now, just to like bootstrap the working group. But because of timing, I try to start pushing kind of like the group to think about deliverables. And there is a chat, like a thread there in Slack where we created this new document to start brainstorming about like, okay, if we want to start delivering on a bunch of things like categories or maybe like an extension to the landscape or kind of like trying to classify tools into more like a developer perspective. So we have that document there, like that I guess that everybody can access, where we can like brainstorm a bit about the topics that we wanted to consider, some of the criteria for selecting projects in this initial stage. And I think that initial stage part is really important, right? We cannot start by looking into every single project that is there in the landscape. So we applied a bunch of filters. That's the link that you can find in the document. And maybe I can share my screen. It will make it easier. Let me see. And again, as we did with the charter, this is super draft, and the idea here is that people can comment and add comments or suggest with using suggestion mode to figure out what's the best thing that we can do to basically go over projects and try to figure out the shape of the deliverable for the working group, right? Because I know that we're bootstrapping the working group, like there is a lot of admin work that we need to do, and we need to actually figure out who is going to do what. But I think that this is something that we can do as a group, and we can use these kind of meetings to drive changes into this discussion. And as you can see here, like thank you, Thomas, for doing this kind of like diagram that basically it's just trying to set up like a sensible enough scope for us to be able to do something. If we basically say every project we will spend like a year trying to classify things, if we start with the smaller list, then it will be easier for us at least to find the right shape for classifying things and for that classification to be useful. I don't know, Lian, I mean, if you have any suggestions on this space on deliverables, like we know that the platform working group created kind of white papers. I have the feeling that for this working group, what we want to do is we want to provide more visibility to the tools that are already there in the landscape. And it would be great if you can help us to connect with people that it's responsible for the landscape itself, for the CNCF landscape, I mean.
Do you mean the people who are working on the landscape itself, or the people who work on the project? I don't actually know who's working on the landscape.
Yeah, so we need to figure that out, I guess, because I think that it will depend if we create a document or if we create a more actionable thing, which might be kind of like extending that landscape with certain tags, like or labels for projects to say, okay, this has like a more like developer angle, so we can filter by those projects and then have a deeper understanding of what's going on there.
Yes, so I think the easiest way to do this is to reach out to our TOC liaison. So we have two people from the TOC who are basically directly working with the tag. And they are Lin Sun and Katie Gamanji.
Okay.
So you are free to reach out to them as well. I mean, they know that we're doing the app development working group, so yeah, they have the context already.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so feel free to reach out to them, and maybe they can tell you where to go next. Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
But I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, because I think that that's the thing, right? Like we don't want to create our own landscape. I think that we need to collaborate with other things that already exist. and complement those. And that may be that we create a document first, and then we apply that to the landscape if we find the right ways to collaborate with that team. But at least we are producing something, consistently over time instead of just just creating something that nobody will see.
Yeah, makes sense. And like,
Okay.
the platforms working group is doing white paper. Like most of our working groups have started with white papers because that was just something that just made sense. Because when you bring people together for the first time, everyone has opinions. You want to put them somewhere, and then out of that, other things can spawn, like the maturity matrix, for example. So it will also make sense if you want to write a white paper, but that's up to you.
Yeah, I think that we as a group we need to think about that. Like think about what can be the first good first white paper. Yeah, and if anybody has any idea about that, again, you are more than invited to suggest and propose kind of like topics in general. I think that the exercise that we are doing in these documents will help us to clarify that. Like maybe if there is a potential for a white paper, or if there are like other kind of artifacts that might be more useful or less useful or complementary to white papers. I don't know, Thomas, Daniel, do you want to share any ideas around that?
Not really. So you already touched on a lot of stuff here. So one thing we try to create some category here for deliverable stuff. So this is just still very draft. And then so we are looking forward to a lot of people to actually add some comment on that. Probably, okay, this bullet point is not relevant to our working group, and that should be good too. Or you can add a new bullet point, or you can give us some idea. We need to combine two kind of stuff. But I want to, the Marcio and I and Thomas, so we are encouraging all of you to looking at more developer standpoint whenever you bring that new idea. So just to keep reminding, okay, this is the new cool stuff like a project tools, whatever you call that. But we eventually try to help application developer when they adopt that kind of technology. So rather than super popular project or tools in outside. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and Thomas created this diagram basically that if you can look into a tool, let's call it, whatever, Docker, right? And then you can go through this flow and basically try to answer those questions. And again, this is not a way, like it's not a way for us to say we will never look into the tools that are not going out in the scope for now, but we will start at least with a very strict filter just to be able to, again, just to figure out the shape for the classification. Once we figure out the shape, then, for example, going to CNCF sandbox projects, which are kind of like a lot of projects there, it will be easier, right? Like if we have the right categories, if we have the right ways of evaluating how useful or the benefits that each project is bringing to the developer space, it will be easier then to expand the filter and say, okay, now we can just actually go and look broader because we understand what we're looking for and we understand how we can classify that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's good to start small also to identify and refine these criteria that then will help us later on when we open up the scope to more options. And by then it will be nice to have a more like structured approach on how to evaluate projects. So yeah, it will be an iterative approach.
Yeah, and let's see, it's not, it's not like we don't have projects to evaluate. Like there are tons of projects already here, right? I don't think that all of these projects are developer oriented. So looking into this and understanding, something like Captain. Okay, what does it bring to a developer? Is a developer interested in going and looking into Captain, and what are they going to get out from it? In contrast to something like gRPC, which is it's just more like a base building block for building applications. What are developers doing with gRPCs, and what tools are related to gRPC in the ecosystem that helps developer to be more efficient, right? When would you consider a tool like gRPC? The same with other things like Cryo or like any other project that it's listed here under this filter. You can get this to the URL that I've shared, or just filtering here with graduating and incubating. You can see that if you add sandbox here, then the list actually get expanded quite a lot. There are tons of other things there to analyze, which is perfectly fine. Like again, we will go there as soon as we find the right categories. But I strongly think that we need to start simple. We just need to start simple, see in the more mature, let's say, projects and how they are helping developers. And maybe we find that like not many of these mature projects are helping developers. That's why maybe we will find more projects into the sandbox space, and then we can help by looking into these projects and tracking them down and helping them to move forward through the maturity stages. I think that should be one of the working group core responsibilities, or something that we do also like on the side, the idea that we help to promote the projects that are helping developers and help those projects to move forward into the maturity space. Yeah, this is kind of like interesting. I'm super hyped to start with this and just to collaborate with you folks on this.
And in
So
terms of deliverables, I think that
Mhm.
while we start working on this, we might get also ideas and inspirations for the next few deliverables. For example, in the charter, we mentioned a glossary. So one of the things we're going to refine, I hope in this first stage, is we talk about developer-oriented tools or tools directly used by developers. So there's probably there a gap where we could agree on the definitions that will also help us along the way to to know which tools to include, which projects, and which kind of angle to address within this working group in that regard.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's the whole point. Do we want to add any other like action items for the group until we meet in 2 weeks? Because I think that at least for me personally, I will really be thinking about this like deeply, about not only the categories but also like the way of describing these projects that are basically being used by developers, and trying to identify different patterns on how developers are interacting with these projects, right? Are they interested in installing tools, or are they interested in just consuming features? I think that, or maybe implementing standards, or maybe adding SDKs to their projects. I think that finding that common way of describing multiple things will help us a lot, and that's why I think that at least for me, for the next 2 weeks, I will be thinking and trying to add more into this document. But if people feel that there is something else that we should be doing, we definitely should add it here to the action items.
Yeah, I think there are two approaches to suggest tools as action items. So first thing approach, so to be honest, we're gonna always to think about how frequently application developers or architects try to use their tools as a part of daily job, rather than, okay, I'm gonna do this tool or a project once a month or once a quarter, which is not a good thing for us, because we don't want to waste our time. And the other approach, maybe we could find some more like a public metrics. For example, I'm more like a Java side, and then there are many like some open source survey, like a New Relic or the other stuff. Hey, this is just some 2024 Q1, some survey result from across the region and from random Java developers. They are really interested in security and containerization and testing automation with some bunch of the open source projects and tools. And then if we could have some kind of more public metrics or survey result, which is really helpful for us to suggest new tools based on that more official survey, rather than, okay, I just heard some new tool came out from CNCF or some random developers, which is maybe not good for us, maybe more transparency or some commonality or some agreement, something like that. Yeah, I know. So it's not always feasible for all runtimes or program languages or even tools, but just good to have thing. If we could have that kind of stuff, it'll be very helpful for all our working group members, because sometimes, oh, I don't have any experience of Golang or even Python, but that tool pretty much is based on Python or Python developers. And then maybe some people, okay, I have no experience to review or give some ideas.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, that sounds good. I think that like the idea of us as a working group creating a survey for validating how developers are using these tools or how many developers are aware of these tools and using the CNCF as a channel to, you know, advertise these surveys might be a good thing. It might be considered kind of like another deliverable.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
how difficult that would be, again, because I strongly believe that the CNCF it's usually not focused on developers, but actually I think that this group have enough reach to go to other developer communities to actually ask these questions.
Yeah, and then so I just wondering if once we decide the like work streams, okay, we're gonna do some 2 jobs for our working group for the next couple of months, like as a priority task. And then you think so we're gonna try to divide and conquer rather than everybody just focus on that one, like some work stream, and then try to complete that kind of stuff until some targeted time frame. Or yeah, we have some good enough numbers. I mean members like 7 or 10. Okay, so few people try to working with this work stream, like some invest or identify some of the tools, specifically like a containerization or testing stuff. And the other folks, okay, we're gonna do the other one, like another bullet point for that. So so it's a little bit later task, but I just wondering once we define some action item, and then I don't think we have only one action item, probably couples, and then how do we like manage our resources to follow on this? Maybe the Leanne so give us some shed on lights on that.
It sounded okay. Sorry, Victor also has his hand up, so maybe
go Victor.
Some ideas.
Yep.
Yeah. So I know is this in scope? What's the scope? I know I guess everybody else is probably a developer. I'm actually not. I'm a database consultant, and I love to do some development. There's some very old Fortran I see a long time ago. But I don't know if I think it'd be great if it can be done to make it easier for non-developers to do cognitive development. I know that's, of course, there's a lot of AI too. It's sort of possible. So that's, with boilerplate code, it's simpler, but for how to make information available to, to tackle the non-boilerplate code. For example, when it comes to API standard, there's open API standard, and there's also a lot of efforts. There's AEP, application enhancement proposal project, focusing on API standard. I think it'd be great if any discussion will be done to kind of at least give a guideline on what does it mean to develop good code for cognitive applications.
It sounds good. Sounds good. Try to help us out with that, right? Like if you find that area of interest, like something that you are into, like or you are interested in, or even if you have some knowledge around it, we need to basically find a link to the projects that we are working on here, right? So we need to find a link to say, like developers are interested in APIs. Of course, that open API exists, and I think that I would say that most developers will know about it, but like it's good to cover it and also to give some context. But how does that apply to the projects that we are talking about here, right? Are the projects that we are talking about here, are they using Open API? Are they promoting Open API? They can integrate with some of the Open API tooling that already exists. And those kind of things will help us a lot to say, okay, we have the right links to cover these projects in the right way, but also to bring things that are not originally listed here, kind of like in the projects that we're looking into.
Yeah, at least for not only for people who are not coder, but even for like junior developers who start to contribute to the code base, if there's any guidelines to make it better, I think the code quality will be much better than without guardrails.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I would also suggest maybe having a look at the charter that we linked in the chat here in the pull request, where we also go through, maybe clarify a bit better the scope, like what's in scope and what's out of scope. There are definitely good things about considering like good programming principles and, for example, how to work with Open API and design APIs. But at least in our current shape, we are kind of putting out of scope, basically covering how to build applications, like the basic of application developments or good ways of doing application developments, and more focusing on the cloud native aspects when working with tools, with working with cloud native platforms. Yeah, there might be some useful information in the charter to clarify a bit that part. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's correct, right? Like, and again, it's like we are not saying that we don't want to cover that. It's more than we need to start with with a smaller list of things to cover. And for us, because we're a working group inside the CNCF, I think that looking at what's already in there makes a lot of sense. But again, I'm not closed, and I think that this working group shouldn't be close to the idea of, if we have the right way of linking things that are interesting to developers to the things that we will be covering here, there's no reason not for us to look into it, or at least keep track of it, right? We can actually create white papers, or we can create complementary things to the main deliverables that will help to bring these external topics that are maybe not covered kind of like in our original, set of scope areas that we're listing here, I think. Yeah, so it's here. I will share the link here. So this is the Google Doc. Maybe it's easier to read. But yes, Victor, please check that out if you can, and please provide comments there. I would suggest, like, the pull request is the source of truth right now. So if we change something in that document, we will need to reflect it here. And as Lian said at the beginning of the meeting, we are not supposed to change that much, but that's what we have defined for at least the initial iteration of the working group. And then we will just review and then improve if we need to. Folks, I don't know. I don't have any other topics in the agenda. Lian, if you want to suggest something, or if you want to bring the attention of any other topic, please let me know. Are there any other questions, comments, or topics that we want to discuss?
I don't have any. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I just
wanted to
one
just note to one quickly, because I was wrong. We don't have to create a pull request with the TOC. It's just an issue. And then there's a separate repository that we might have to open. I'm trying to figure that out. My only, I don't have anything else, but you could start working on things now. You still have 30 minutes. Yeah. Sorry, Danny, go ahead.
Okay, that's exactly I want to ask. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah.
Great. I think that, like, for us to work, we need to sit down and do some work in this document again. And we can cover this document right now, like the content of this document. I guess that it's basically the view of different people on how to categorize tools. And there's a lot of overlap. I think that, Thomas, did you suggest this one? Yes, right? Yes.
Yeah, I used the categories from the charter and
from
try
the
to
charter.
put tools. Using
Exactly.
those categories.
Yeah, exactly. I think that, like, this is good. That's basically pretty much what we did, and I guess that this one, yeah, this is good. And yeah, okay, that's good. Development, and then we can just add that because that's the charter, right? Like the charter, perfect. And then look into basically the projects that are these are like the projects that are listed into the landscape, right?
Yeah, graduated and incubating. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that Backstage is good. Yeah, perfect. Good stuff. I was trying to describe different sections here just to give a little bit more clarity on what it is, right? So do we have that? Do we have protocols?
Yeah, there are probably different dimensions. I was considering how to visualize that because some of them are SDKs, others are specifications, other are end user tools. So a suggestion would be to identify the main dimension we want to start with, and then we could add the other dimensions. Maybe you can make some kind of matrix or define a list of tags to categorize further each tool.
Yeah. That's, I was thinking exactly about that. It's like trying to define a little bit more about like what a protocol is and how a developer, like a cloud native developer, relates to that protocol, right? usually this is like, you will just need to use some kind of library to interact with the cloud event, right? Like you can just do it manually, or you can just use kind of like an SDK for your programming language to create cloud events and to consume cloud events. I think that the same with NATS and gRPC, you will need to have specific libraries to use in your programming language of choice in order to work. And I think that, yeah, and then the same with observability. What is a developer, kind of like, what's the relationship between a developer and this specific topic, right? Or topic or thing. We need to figure out what the dimension is, what is this? What are these buckets here?
I feel like, by the way, on that topic, I feel like Backstage is in a different category than Dapper for sure.
That APIs, that's for sure. Yeah, it's not there.
Like I think
it's
it
probably
deserves to be with the list. There's a bunch of things that Backstage provides developers, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure
more
it's
like
like I commonly hear it referred to as like a developer portal, or like
it's like a portal. Yeah.
Or could be a kind of centerpiece of an internal developer platform.
Yeah, that I added that because it kind of helps for creating developer portals basically.
Yeah, and I guess that you added to APIs because it helps, it also helps to discover services and APIs, I guess.
Yeah, it has a service catalog for APIs.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to figure it out, like the category. That's why defining what is this, I think it's important. Like like we need a small description of this, basically. And maybe we can say, like if we are not finding any tools in these categories, maybe, okay, we don't talk about that and we define maybe what this big thing means.
Yeah, and that APIs group there might repeat in other places. That's like APIs within the application, calling APIs like Dapper. Then there might be APIs in the development environment section, or I don't know, testing. That's the secondary dimensions that I was referring to.
Yeah, and I mean, if we don't find something like something that doesn't fit in the testing or the code quality and standard category, probably what I would think of is, instead of going in that direction or completely excluding that, we could probably take projects which are into the CNCF landscape, even though they are not mature or into incubating category, we can consider someone that are on the landscape itself.
Yep. Maybe exactly. So if you think that, I mean, if you find these kind of tools that are not matching the filters that we have right now, I think that we can add them with some kind of like note. But I wouldn't go into describing and classifying all those, because again, it will become way too much work. Just classifying and describing these tools will take us
probably we can add a bracket, maybe that it's part of, it's already incubated, or it's just on the landscape. Because there are many which are on the landscape related to testing, but I couldn't spot anyone for code quality and standard, probably not exactly, but yeah, I mean, Kyverno does help filtering, implementing security, but that is not used for code quality or standards. That's not exactly used for that purposes. But I can figure out that because I have worked in the past with the Kyverno. I can figure that out, and Kyverno is in I think incubating project.
Perfect.
Mauricio, would it make sense to add maybe at the end of the page a section where we can start, gathering other options for tools that we're not considering this first stage, where we agree on criteria and definitions, so that, we start getting a backlog, and then when we move to the stage 2, we can move them up based on the categorization.
Yep. Yeah, that sounds good. So we can include here, tools that are not matching our initial scope.
Makes sense.
Are interesting from the working group perspective to tackle later in 2 iterations. Yep, that's good.
Makes sense.
Great. I'm happy. Here we go. I can see this one. This is from you, Ryan, right? Like productivity tools. And I can see someone from Justina too about microgs. Perfect. By the way, I like all these tools, right? Like dev containers, microgs, test cube, and all these things. These tools are tools that I know pretty well, and I kind of like. But again, like tools like Garden and Tilt, again, all very, very good tools. The question is, how do we cover them? Where do we position them? And if they are part of the, like if they are part of the CNCF or not. I think that's still kind of like a filter that we need to use.
Yeah, I filled this out before that info was in the doc. So if you want, I can
right.
I can go take a look at this and see how they match that criteria.
Yes, but if you find a tool that you said like that you really like Tilt or something, like you definitely feel that the working group cannot live without like covering something like Tilt, please let's move it here to the backlog so we know that we can keep track of it and add it at some point. Because I strongly agree that something like Tilt or Garden or Telepresence are tools that we need to cover sooner or later.
Okay.
But
are you saying that because they don't meet the criteria, or are you saying that something different?
Does Tilt meet the criteria? It's still here. That's kind of what I'm wondering.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah, I can check into that. I don't know. I just know that there's a bunch of these. Like there's 5 or 6 that I could probably name if I thought about it, that are all like run my app in Kubernetes. They're all targeted at. So I can go check on that.
Perfect. I appreciate that. That's pretty much the work that we will be all doing, right? Like if we want to mention a project, we will go do the research, see the maturity state of the project, and then try to find how to describe how developers are relating to it.
Yeah, Victor
so,
raised.
I shared two link. Not two link, just one link. So let's say if I'm a high school graduate, just and come out and want to join CNCF and do some code contribution, but without any coding experience, and then so the first thing I will probably start from where should I start to do it right? So Open API being very well known, so that's about really kind of open API standard how to do open REST APIs. And then I come to this project, which is application API enhancement, which is about more than REST API. It's also about gRPC because it's kind of coming from Google. So this is a lot of people say this is very good. This is standard to follow. Then we also come to see, okay, so gRPC is well known for a long time. Then there's also NAT, which is relatively new. So how do I know to choose the NAT? Is that even mature, right? So and what's the theory behind it? So that kind of, at least for a newcomer like me, at least in the coding area, that's the question I would ask to say, how do I make a decision? Or even at least give me like a trade-off to understand if I choose gRPC versus NAT, what's the good and bad, etc.
I think that's good, and because gRPC is part of the projects that we're looking into, we can actually in a way relate to the concepts behind these, right?
Yeah. For example, for AEP, which come from the Google AIP, my understanding is that Google is actually going to do some AI machine learning based on the existing AIP standard, and which will be put into I don't know, it's going to be a public tool, just an internal tool to automatically give guardrails, guidelines on when developing APIs. So yeah, I think even if it's not something that automatic, I think it would be good to get kind of reaching guidelines for a trade-off at least for any developer, regardless of the experience level.
Perfect. Yeah, sounds good. I like this. Let's include the link there.
Yeah, should we add the note together with the other actions, because it could be future deliverables. Once we have this matrix of projects, it could be interesting to gather interested people and work on something on specific topics like API, and then we have identify some tools around API, and then we could maybe explore that topics a bit more, give directions, compare different tools with these trade-offs. Yeah,
makes sense. Yeah, I think that's good, right? Like yeah, I think that's good. And maybe again, it's like I think that what we need to find out like in the next week or so is the format, right? Like if we said, okay, we will just look into one of these, how we do describe these? Like we just don't need to describe what the project or what the thing is. We just need to describe how it relates to developers, and we probably need to have that some kind of like table or matrix where we just fill some kind of like form with the main things that we want to say about this project and how it relates to developers. When we find that shape, it will be much easier to say, okay, for each project, we have a set of things that we recommend people to look into, like API design. If you're like designing APIs, or if you are building like integrations with cloud events, these are the things that you need to look into. First of all, the project website, of course, but then there might be specific things that you are like interested as a newcomer. So you don't know anything about cloud events. You go to the website, probably you don't understand what it is. So you have a link, for example, to the examples, but also who is implementing these and which other tools are adopting these kind of specifications. I think that will be very useful.
Yeah, for me, I'm really interested in the historical as a fan. I don't have to do this every day. That's why I'm more interested in a historical perspective. For example, in gRPC, this is well known why gRPC sort of existed because of things like REST doesn't do very well, right? So why NAS exists? What kind of problem that NAS is tackling that gRPC has not resolved? And then going forward, if NAS does become mature and successful, does gRPC still make sense to do gRPC?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that sounds more like a white paper to me, Victor, than a classification, right? Like we can just not go into history for classifying these projects, but probably give enough context for people to know how they are going to relate to these tools. Again, I think that what Thomas referred before is that, like we described in the charter, what the focus of the working group is, and I think that we want to at least start with giving people enough context for them to understand how they will relate to these tools. Like I wouldn't say that like someone from high school will come and look into this and say, what is cloud events, right? It needs to be something like it's already doing application development and they want to expand the tool sets, and they can come here and say, okay, there are all these tools in the cloud native space. How do I relate to that? How does this tool relate to my day-to-day work? And how it can save me some time or help me to do better, right? And what you're describing feels more like it's around some of these things like gRPC, so it's like context around that specific tool. But yeah, we can just not analyze the entire industry to all the things that compete or compare to gRPC. But what we can do right now is, at least for this audience that it's looking into the CNCF landscape, to explain that, if you come into this diagram and you click another filter that it's application development, and you see this project, you can like understand what this project is going to do for you as a developer. Of course, for someone that is new, that will not be enough, but that's kind of like our first step into trying to refine and making these kind of like tools a little bit more useful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, got it. Thanks.
Yeah, we could probably look into how to make it easy or easier, depending on the projects, for developers. Since we're starting with CNCF projects, perhaps there are preferred links or pages or some documentation targeted at developers that could enrich the landscape that we're going to build up, so that you don't just get a category for a tool, but also a more direct link, if you're a developer, to the right documentation or right resources, so that like getting started with the tool as a developer feels less challenging.
Yeah, or at least you understand what the tool is going to do for you, right?
Yeah.
So you have like the getting started experience that each tool will have their own, right? And I think that might be one of the next steps, just to like, if there are two tools in the same space, the getting started experience should be in some way compatible, right? Like they should use the same concepts and the same ways of explaining how to get started if the tools are close to each other, right? Like, or if they can work together. But for now, it's more like, I'm a developer. I want to know how do I relate to cloud events, right? Like, and why cloud events is being listed as like an application development related specification or tool or protocol. Cool. Folks, any other action items? I strongly believe that we just need to basically sit down and think about this and work on this on this document by adding comments. I'm not entirely sure if we can be productive by just looking at the document as it is. Feel free to read it and look into it and add whatever you think that we should be looking into. If you come up with some ways of categorizing this in a way that it's a little bit more understandable, please feel free to suggest that. And yeah, we will keep those discussions flowing into the Slack channel, right? We are always looking there and trying to engage with people. I feel, Lian, that with the things that you discussed today, because it's not approved by the TOC yet, should we start to make this working group a little bit more public? Should we start writing about it and bringing more people in?
Yeah,
or not
definitely.
yet?
You can
Yes?
definitely do that. You can always bring more people in. I mean, the TOC knows that we are building this. They've supported us building this working group. So it's just about formalities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so I think that I will just add as an action item. Maybe Thomas and Daniel, we can just write go author like a blog post or something for the CNCF. Is that something that we can do? Yeah.
You can definitely write a blog post for our blog, for example, for the tag app delivery blog, just so it's published and you can share that. I don't think you can do it for the CNCF blog. I don't think we have that power.
That's all right. I think that we do as like ambassadors. I think that we can propose.
Yeah, I think.
Oh
we
yeah,
can
that's
do this
true. And I think
yeah.
if you are a member, like if your company is a member, you can also you get like two half a year, you get 2 blog posts or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, sure. You could even do it as an ambassador. I mean, that's your literal job, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Quick question though. Should I create another meeting for this time for the 16th of May? So we're sticking with the same time for the next one. And then after, I hope by then you will have access to all the tools to then create the meeting yourselves. And you can also decide to choose a different time if that works better for you. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to create another meeting, like a single meeting for 16th of May in 2 weeks.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Is this time works for everyone or not really? It's like, Dan, are you still here?
No, I think Dan is
Okay.
probably the only one who has a bit of an issue. Maybe you want to talk to Daniel.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously the time should be one where at least the 3 chairs can make it.
Let's discuss this in Slack, right? Like I will just drop a message there, and we of course, it's not only the chairs, right? Like if other people want to join and this time works well, we just keep it this time.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Folks, any other things? Any other comments? Thomas, any other thing that you want to add? Nope. Great. I think that I do feel that we are making progress. Like we are actually bootstrapping the working group. For me, it was really important, but at the same time, I didn't want to not start working or thinking about the deliverables. And I think that every time that we create and ask for feedback, we are getting a lot of feedback, which is great. So I think that we just need to keep it up and try to do, a little bit every week. So, it starts shaping up. Thank you, Lian, for all the help.
Sure.
Really appreciate it. Thank you, Thomas.
Yeah,
thank you, Sonali. Ryan, thank you for joining.
Yep.
We will just
see you.
We'll probably keep you in the loop. And Graciano and Colin, thank you for joining too.
Oh,
Please.
I will not be able to make the next meeting, but I will see that I send some other chair over to replace me here.
Yeah, can you make sure that we have an invite at least?
I will do it in the tag app, the
Perfect.
CNCF community thing again, so you can subscribe to that one. Yeah.
Great. Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right.
Folks,
Great.
have a good one.
Bye.
See you. Bye.
Yeah.